Hello, today I'm going to be telling you about the 1987 gamebook Casket of Souls. It's by Ian Livingstone with amazing artwork by Ian McCaig. It's my favourite gamebook of all time and one of my favourite books of all time. So the book contains an epic fantasy story with demons and dragons and wizards and knights. And the story is split up into 12 sections, like this one. This is one chapter here, and this is the story. And each chapter has a corresponding piece of artwork that goes with it by Ian McCaig. And the puzzle is that you have to find things hidden in the pictures. So also throughout the book, you'll see that there are royal treasures. There are 12 royal treasures that you have to look for in the pictures. And they don't tell you which royal treasure is in which picture, so you have to find them hidden in the artwork. Sometimes it's very easy, sometimes it's not so easy. The easiest one to find is this one, the Banner of Titans. You have to turn it on its side, but there it is. Some of them are a lot more difficult to find. So I'm going to be going through this book. I'm going to read you the story and show you the pictures so you can see if you can figure it out as you go along. But if you just want to see the solution to the puzzle, just skip ahead and I'll show you where they all are and how to find them. Welcome. I had given up all hope that anyone would hear my call for help. You have come, although there is precious little time in which to act. The battle against the Chaos Hordes is nearly lost. I am Sallazar, once a great wizard of Amarillia, and now its spirit guardian, but I was defeated and banished to the plane of shadows and cannot save the king. I am doomed, but still able to help you defeat the Lord of Chaos. Listen to what I have to say, and look at what I have to show you. It is very important that you study every detail. Learn quickly, and victory may yet be ours. Some 200 years ago, Amarilia was torn apart by a war between three great provinces. Panassa, ruled by men, Barabang, ruled by centaurs, and Grundia, ruled by dwarfs. Each wanted to control over the other two provinces. They fought each other fanatically and did not realize that whilst they all grew weaker, orcs, zombies, and other creatures of darkness gathered in strength and waited. The first to notice this was a member of the great Council of Wizards to which I belonged. The council were gathered together to discuss the grave danger facing Amarilia and arrived at a terrible conclusion. A demon would come from the outer planes to take charge of its waiting servants and conquer the land. We had to act quickly. But first, to deter lesser invaders, we built the great firewall around Amarilia. It was an immense task. Each of us went to the outermost points of Amarilia. Hundreds of miles separated us. But we stretched out our arms and shot fireballs towards each other. The fireballs fused together and formed a curtain of fire. We stepped inside the firewall and returned home to Sanctuary, which lies on the furthermost island of the chain called the Ice Cap Islands. Our island later became known as the Cauldron because of the steam which rose from the fire as it melted the ice. Our second and most daunting task was to make a weapon that would destroy a demon yet would not harm beings with souls. Several suggestions were made, but we knew there was only one sure way of destroying a demon. We had to make a trapping box, one that would suck the demon out of our dimension. Using crystal, bronze and gold, we fashioned a casket and then prepared ourselves to infuse it with the greatest elemental and magical power. Each with our fingers on the casket we began, drawing on our energy. The casket began to glow until it became translucent white, radiating rainbow colours. It became burning hot, and some of us screamed in pain but refused to let go. To do so would have rendered the casket useless. Yet we knew that 11 of us would die if we held on. It was I who survived. I was to be the keeper of the casket that would protect the souls of Amarilia against a demon, should one ever come. I held the casket of souls in my hands and stared at it, wondering at the powers that it held. Alone, I questioned whether these souls were worth protecting, their futile wars having caused death of the Grand Wizards, but it was our wish. The next 10 years I spent alone in the Sanctuary. During this time the wars ended. A warrior lord by the name of Thorgar led the Panassan army to victory over the Barabang, and combined the army of men and centaurs took control of Grundia within a year. Thorgar was proclaimed king of Amarilia, and peace was with us at last. Thorgar turned out to be a good king. He too was aware of the increasing numbers of creatures of darkness, although he did not know of the possibility that a demon might come at any time, and I did not feel that I should worry him with the knowledge. After all, I had the casket, but the demon did not come. From time to time the casket glowed, and I knew the demon was watching and learning, getting ready to materialize in our world, and as it waited, it grew. Despite the common enemy, peace between the three provinces was always in the balance, so Thorgar commissioned a magic sword that would be a symbol of unity and strength. He named it the Blade of Braxis, after his own son, and died nobly by it in the ritual of the sword to allow Braxis to become king. Braxis took strength from his father and ruled with authority. He declared that a royal collection of magical treasures would be started, the first of which would be his own crown. One object would be added to the collection by each succeeding king and brought to Sanctuary for safekeeping, for it was believed that the 12 Grand Wizards of the Council were immortal and would forever protect Amarilia. The years passed by, and still the demon did not come. Since the Casket of Souls was made, 12 kings have ruled in Amarilia, and 12 magical objects have been brought to the Sanctuary. For 20 decades I have sat on the throne in the treasure room beneath the Sanctuary, within reach of the casket. A month ago, the casket suddenly started to glow quite brightly. The demon was coming at last. The glow of the casket intensified, and then it started to pulsate. This could only mean a greater demon would appear, one that might be invincible, or at least could defeat me. Fearing the worst, I decided to place a single word of the spell that would open the casket on each of the royal magical treasures. After disguising them, I planned to hide them where no demon would ever find them. There are 12 objects, and the spell is made up of 12 words. Should I fail, somebody else could yet open the casket, but I had to gamble. I stepped through a magical portion so that I could scatter the objects through Amarilia. I then presented myself as a vision in the dreams of the new king, warning him of the coming demon. King Kral would know that his dreams would come true. All this I did in less time than it takes to blink an eye, and yet, when I stepped back through the portal to my chamber, the demon was waiting for me. It appeared as a robed skeleton with an elongated skull. It stood motionless, staring at me through its cold eyes. This terrible thing was a bone demon. The casket was where I left it, but now it was pulsating as though it might ignite. The demon knew of its power, but it also knew that I had to hold it in my hands if the spell was to open it. I reached forward and was destroyed by the demon's malign power in an instant. My atoms reassembled, but I was trapped in another dimension here on the plane of shadows. The demon picked up the casket and left Sanctuary to raise an army. Amarilia would fall. King Kral made a brave attempt to defeat the demon and its legions of orcs and zombies. He mustered an army and assembled his troops at the foot of the Blackstone Hills near Lake Faro. Defending the high ground, he waited for the demon attack, not knowing that all the Grand Wizards were now gone. As the soulless zombies were driven uphill towards him by orc commanders, Kral rode through his troops on a white unicorn to lead them to battle. In the distance, a dark cloud of swirling war dragons came into view, but all his men cheered as Kral galloped towards the demon's army. Wielding a mighty two-handed battle blade, he cut through the lines of zombies, but the demon was above him on a dragon and wiped out his mind with a snap of his bony fingers. Under the demon's control, Kral turned against his own men and furiously began to attack them. Demoralized, his troops turned and fled, most of them dying in the flames of the mighty fire-breathing dragons. The day was lost. I watched on helplessly as King Kral was dragged away in irons, and the demon gave the order to destroy all life. I will show you now what has happened since that terrible day when the battle was lost. The carnage of the past 30 days, the pockets of resistance that fight on, right up to the climactic events that happened only moments ago. I will show you the 12 royal treasures and explain their origins, but you must find them on your own, in the visions of the 30 days past where the spell's words were first placed. Put the words in the order of the numbered treasures, and the spell will open the casket and unleash the power of the great wizards. Do not flinch in the face of evil, for Amarilia's survival rests with you. Look carefully, for all is not as it seems. And for your journey, you will need mirrors, scissors, pencil, and paper. Time is short and we must go. Within days of the Battle of Barabang, the kingdom of Amarilia was ravaged. The minions of the demon slaughtered the people whose spirit was broken and burned down their buildings. Wherever the undead walked, the soil turned black, poisoning the land. The new dead were quickly raised by the demon to join its army of zombies, which swelled each day and marched relentlessly on. When they reached Lizard Island, there were few guards left to defend the royal family, who were taking refuge in Kral's home castle. The young Prince Talus carried his sister Tasha to safety with the help of Lorenzo, their guardian. Their only shield was a table with magic runes that could melt the putrid flesh of the undead. They ran for their lives, the prince and princess hoping to find their mother, Queen Hannibelina, who had already sailed to the cauldron with her newborn son. The demon decided to let some people live on so that they should endure a life of misery. Dwarves were forced to toil in the blue stone mines to destroy the mother vein, and mercilessly flogged if they stopped to rest, even for a moment. The demon knew that the mother vein was alive and glowed beneath its blue surface. In the old days, the dwarves would ask permission of the mother vein before taking some of her stones, but now the demon was intent on her destruction, for the vein represented law and cooperation. It did not matter that the mining dwarves died from their labours, as the demon would simply raise the dead and add them to its army. Yet, despite slavery, their spirit remained unbroken, and the courageous dwarves whispered plans of a rebellion between themselves. If only they could escape and join up with the last remnants of King Kral's army. Even without their king, they would prefer to die in battle rather than watch their own slow demise. Orcs were now the dominant race in the land. They carried out the orders of the demon and enjoyed their privileged position. They guided the undead army through Amarillia, burning, destroying and looting everything in their path. Once the destruction was complete, they were left to indulge themselves in orgies of cruel, sadistic rites. To ensure their allegiance, the demon gave the orc chieftain, who was known as Thulu, a crown which, unknown to him, was a helmet of obedience. It injected poisons into his brain and made his head swell so that he could not remove the crown. Thulu was unaware of the grotesque protuberances of his cranium through the holes in the crown, for the poison made him think of nothing but servitude to the demon. And in the great hall of Castle Argent, the demon let its servants play. Meanwhile, the demon took pleasure from the twisted developments of its beloved war dragons. 2 wings of Castle Argent were converted into egg hatcheries, and the job of tending the eggs was entrusted to a mutant orc called Gruul. His title was Keeper of the Eggs, and he was chosen because only a training as cruel as his would ensure the dragon's nature would be forever aligned to chaotic evil. It was well known that dragons were not natural killers, nor even cared for the taste of flesh, but Gruul's patient methods of starvation and pain, followed by a grisly diet of human and other flesh, succeeded well. The corrupted dragons were thus prepared for the demon's needs. However, not everybody was slain or captured in those terrifying days following the defeat of King Kral. Some took to the hills, while others hid in the forests and caves. Birds were used to send messages between the survivors so that they could plan their rebellion together. Taking refuge in the fire swamps was Astares, the Moon Sister, perhaps the only remaining true seer left alive. On discovering that she had survived the demon, 4 leaders of the resistance braved the perilous journey across the fire swamps to seek her out. Bur the proud centaur, Brock the stout dwarf, Jarl the giant with his heart of oak, and Anvar the silent and fearless warrior glimpsed their own fatal destinies in the fountain of vision that Astares created. But they knew it was better to die in battle against the demon than suffer servitude and degradation, and so they returned to tell others of the coming battle. The wizard Remstar, who had been appointed to the court of King Kral, was one of those held captive in the dark dungeons beneath Castle Argent. Not even a grand wizard, his magic had been useless against the demon's powers, and now, with his mind controlled by the demon, he was experimenting with dark sorcery. Each day he laboured in tortured silence, not even aware that his king was chained inside a cramped, unlit chamber nearby. The demon would visit poor Remstar to demand some vile potion or gain knowledge of Amarilia, past, present and future. It was yesterday, as Remstar gazed blankly into the flames that danced on his fingertips, that the demon saw glimpses of the coming rebellion. Subconscious voices tried to stir Remstar, but there was nothing he could do to stop the betrayal. The news of the Moon Sister's vision spread like a fire, even reaching those left starving in the dungeons or slaving in the mines. The free journeyed by night to gather in Black Shadow Valley to be put into units of an army that would rescue their king. Spurred on by these rumours, the prisoners began their revolt. Even though many were slaughtered by the Chaos slave masters as they tried to escape, hundreds more broke out and headed for Black Shadow Valley. If only I could have told them that the demon knew of their plans and intended to slaughter them all on the battlefield. The reason why the royal family fled to the cauldron was that they knew that they would be kept safe inside the sanctuary. An invisible barrier kept out all intruders. Queen Hannibelina also knew the incantation to gain entry across the bridge to the tower. The spell opened the eyes of the window of stairs, but sometimes the eyes would remain open for up to an hour, allowing anybody to cross the bridge. Anvar had seen his destiny in the fountain of vision. The lone warrior journeyed quickly to the cauldron. He arrived just as the royal family were crossing the bridge, being chased by scores of lava clones. Bravely, Anvar took his position on the bridge, wielding his great battle axe as the lava clones pressed forward. For half an hour he hacked away remorselessly at the clones until the eyes of the window finally closed to reseal the invisible barrier behind him. For another 10 minutes he fought on, watched helplessly by the royal family, until at last he fell. When the demon saw the vision of the rebellion, its anger was so intense that it beheaded every prisoner in the dungeons of Castle Argent, but many had already escaped, and so Mungus, the vile jailer, was fed to the dragons for incompetence. The demon then sent messages to the orcs to turn the undead army towards the Plain of Peril, where the centaurs were already in position. It then instructed Gruul to prepare the war dragons for battle. Karl and Remstar were hauled from their cells and led to the castle ramparts, where the demon's favourite war dragon was waiting. The demon chained Kral to the dragon's leg and then sat astride its black-horned neck. Remstar stood motionless and did not even comprehend the dragon's next order. A sickly, gurgling hiss from the demon enraged the war dragon, and it exhaled a ball of fire straight at poor Remstar, bringing an abrupt end to his poor life. Satisfied by the lethal powers of its dragons, the demon gave the signal to fly. Hundreds of black dragons rose into the air, roaring and spitting fire, with Kral dangling helplessly, oblivious to what was happening. By now the rebel army had swelled to several thousand in number, almost filling the floor of Black Shadow Valley in which they hid. But the centaurs became restless, and their leaders sensed the danger of being trapped inside the valley. They decided that they couldn't risk waiting for further recruits any longer, and gave the order to move out. Units of men, dwarves, giants, elves, and even the hill tribes marched together, whilst the centaurs galloped ahead into Wailing Pass, but halted suddenly at the edge of the Plain of Peril. In the distance they saw a huge cloud of dust rising into the sky. The zombies were on the march. Inside the pass, the rebels watched silently as the demon dragged King Kral through the dirt in chains behind it. This was too much for the rebels to bear, and they swarmed out of the pass to save their king. At once, the demon took flight, leaving Kral with its minions so that it could direct the battle from above. It ordered the orcs to urge the undead forward to meet the disorganized rebels, charging towards them. The fighting was fierce, and although outnumbered, the rebels held their own ground for the first hour of the battle. The charging centaurs managed to break through the packed ranks of undead in several places, and the giants following behind crushed the zombies underfoot. The elven archers closed in and loosed their bows at the orc guards' flanks. Volley after volley of arrows rained down on them, and it looked for a while as if the orcs might break and flee. The men and dwarfs attacked doggedly on foot, wielding their swords and axes, stepping over the twitching limbs of the fallen zombies and orcs. But the demon still held its war dragons in reserve, and now it gave the signal for them to fly into the melee. Their killing power was awesome. Crushing, clawing, and burning, they decimated the rebel army. Panic spread throughout, and the rebels died by the hundred. Forming a last desperate circle to hold back the demon's army, they began to chant, "Kral, Kral, Kral," at the top of their voices. This only happened minutes ago. And this is the present. What you see here is happening now. The battle is all but lost. Kral's few remaining warriors have been pushed back to the edge of the bottomless pit. Listen to their howling screams as they fall, whilst the demon looks down from above, revelling in its absolute power. Yet our moment has come. Look to the horizon. You can just see a glowing object flying towards us. It is Astarez, the moon sister, consumed in a ball of burning gases. She knows you are here, and is shooting through the skies like a fireball, her powers concentrated into one final cataclysmic effort. Already she's beginning to dissolve in bursts of flames, but the demon has not yet seen her. Look! She has snatched the Casket of Souls from the demon's hand and dropped it down into the pit. Quick, you must reach it first, for whilst it is out of the demon's hands, it can be opened. Do not be alarmed. This is my hand that has caught the casket. This is as far as I can reach into the world from the plane of shadows. Take it now, and shout the spell to open it. The demon will be here in seconds. So the solution to the puzzle is to find the treasures in the right order. And the first treasure is number 1, the Crown of Kings, and that can be found in this picture. Find it, I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to point out to you that there's a pattern in the marble down here, and if you go over it, the crown appears. Okay, so there's half of it, and if you put a mirror there, there it is. The second treasure is the Blade of Braxis, and that can be found in this picture with a good old-fashioned join the dots. The third treasure is the Golden Chalice, and that's quite an easy one. It can be found in this picture. You just turn it upside down and squint a bit, and there it is. The fourth treasure is the Helmet of Wisdom, which is probably the most difficult one to find, I think. It's in this picture here, and what we've got on the shields are some little diagrams which, if you put them in the right order, are origami instructions. The next treasure is the Horn of Calling, and that can be found in this picture here. I should have said that every page of the book has a title on the left hand side there, which is always a clue. So this clue here is Evil Spiders Mating, and if you look at the picture, you'll see there are some spiders here and here, and the way to find the treasure is to fold the picture over so that the spiders mate like that, and when you do, the horn appears here, and also an evil face down here. The next treasure is the silver arrows, and they're in this picture. Here they are down here. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. There's 6 in this section here, and then there's another one there, and another one there, and also another one over here. The next treasure is the Shimmering Shield, and that's in this picture here. It's up here. I need the mirror again for this one, 2 mirrors in fact. Turn it like that, put the mirrors there, there's the shield. The Book of Magic Lore is in this picture here. To see it, you need to turn it on its side and just angle that, and well, you can sort of see it. There it is. Number 9 is the Crystal Key, and that's in this picture, and it's just hidden in the detail up there. There it is. The next one's much trickier, and that's the Amulet of Courage. That's in this picture here. Now as I say, there's a clue up here on the left hand side which tells you about the insect maze. So there's a maze down here. I'm not sure I've got this right, to be honest, but it must be something like this. Is that the chain maybe down here? Well, there's the eyes. There's something like that. Well, you get the idea. And finally, the ash bow is in this picture down here. There it is. So now that we've found all of the treasures, what's the spell? Well, remember I said you've got to put them in order, and the first one in order is the Crown of Kings. So you come to this page here where the Crown of Kings was, and remember that there's a clue on the opposite page each time. What you've got to do is take the first word of the clue. So the first word of the spell is darkness, and the second word of the spell, you've got to go to the sword kissed. So darkness kissed. And if you carry on like that, the spell becomes darkness kissed, hatred hissed, evil twist, casket blast this demon into mist. Thanks for watching.